Hey there, I'm Eli Straw, mental performance coach and the founder of SuccessStartsWithin.com. In this series, I'm reading stories from my new collection of short stories titled Mind Games. Now, this collection includes stories of different athletes who are struggling with mental game challenges, and it talks about what they do to overcome and work through those challenges. Now, in the last episode, I read the story of Haley, a college softball player who's struggling with the comments that she's receiving from her coach, and she's having a difficult time not having that turn into anxiety and pressure during games. So if you'd like to watch that video, I've put a link to it right here. Now, in today's story, it's titled An Unwanted Break. This follows a college quarterback who is about halfway through the season and finds himself benched. Marcus always played. That's what he did, and it's who he was. His entire identity had been wrapped up in being the starting quarterback ever since he was a freshman in high school. Not even an injury could keep him from being the one under center, and none of that had changed once he'd gotten to college. He was a junior now, and for the past 2 years he'd claimed the starting role. As a freshman, he was faced with true competition for the first time in his career. While initially he felt betrayed by the coaches, remembering their wide eyes and smiling faces as they promised him the starting spot, he'd quickly switched his mindset to one determined to uphold his identity no matter what. And that's exactly what he did, playing 2 full seasons of high-level football and enjoying every second. All that was now under threat. The season was halfway through, with the past 3 weeks being nothing Marcus wanted to remember. It felt as though it had sprung on him out of darkness. A strong sense of anxiety as the game began, accompanied by clouded thoughts of self-doubt. In high school, he'd sometimes questioned his abilities and felt nervous before a game, but nothing like this. Unsure what to do, he'd kept what he was experiencing hidden from everyone, including his coach. Except he could not hide the 5 interceptions and 2 measly touchdowns he'd thrown over the past 3 weeks. Those could not be covered up by hardened eyes and a confident smile. 5 minutes remained in the fourth quarter. Down by 14, while it was nothing they hadn't come back from before, the deficit seemed all but impossible with the way their quarterback had been playing. As a special teams unit rushed onto the field ready to receive the punt, the coach called out a name that sunk like a dagger in Marcus's heart. "Brandon!" "Yes, sir," the freshman answered as he hurried next to his coach. "You've got the rest of this game. Go get him." Excitement streamed from Brandon as he ran onto the field full of hope. It was his time. Coach Anders shot Marcus a disappointing look and said nothing. Desperately, Marcus wanted his coach to come talk to him, telling him how it's okay and he understands that bad games happen, reassuring him that there was no doubt in his mind that Marcus was a starting quarterback. Except none of that came. What occurred instead was heartbreaking to watch. He tried his best to cheer his team and their new young leader on as they marched down the field, scoring a quick touchdown, but inside, Marcus was drowning in feelings of shame and embarrassment. Here was this freshman, making easy work of a team that had held him to only 40 yards all game and 2 interceptions. The crowd cheered as the defense retook the field, causing a quick 3-and-out. While on the sideline, Marcus forced himself to give a congratulatory nod to Brandon, but kept quiet other than that. He didn't want to appear like a selfish player and knew winning the game was important to the team's chances of making the playoffs, though his anger and self-pity were just as strong. Straining to appear pleased, Marcus watched as the final seconds ticked away, and Brandon left the field a hero. Loud music blasted in the locker room. It was a celebration for all but one who felt as though he was on the outside looking in. Never before had he watched as his team won without himself being one of the crucial factors. The reality that struck him was painful. Marcus not only didn't help them win, but he was the one who'd been keeping them from doing so. The 2 games prior, they'd suffered uncommon losses. The teams they'd played were far below them in ranking and ability. They were games on paper that seemed like easy victories. Marcus let out a heavy sigh as he buttoned up his shirt, realizing he had turned from hero to hindrance in a matter of weeks. The celebration continued as he quietly left through the side door. He was in no mood to speak to anyone, especially the news reporters who were bound to have unnerving questions for him. Sulking back toward his car, the final interception kept flashing in his mind. How did I not see him standing there? Marcus thought to himself. I'm such an idiot. I had to have been blind not to see that safety standing right in front of him. The berating thoughts continued as he opened the door. The air was filled with the smell of fall. Closing the door, he sat in silence, staring off into space for a few moments. His mind was absent, having failed to even turn on the ignition. Sweat began to bead on his nose. A drop fell on his tan pants. Another followed, except this time Marcus realized it was not sweat. A single tear of frustration had snuck from his eye. Looking up, he noticed a few of his teammates heading his way. Lifting his head, Marcus could tell in the rearview mirror that his eyes were red and wet. Quickly, he turned the car on and sped out of the parking lot, passing his waving teammates without the slightest glance. As he sped down the highway, anger boiled inside, and Marcus damned himself for his recent play. But more than that, he tore himself down unrelentingly for allowing feelings of anxiety and doubt to occupy his mind. "You're stronger than that, Marcus," he screamed out loud. Burning tears now streamed down his face. "What would Dad think if he found out you've gone soft? All that training and effort for nothing, letting a little freshman take your spot. It should have been you out there winning the game." He paused for a moment as a break in the torment came and went with the sudden flash of his coach's disappointing glare. He had been like a second father to him over the past 2 years, and it hurt to the core knowing the disapproval he now held toward Marcus. "And what is Coach going to think of me?" he began again. "There's no way he can trust me now. I wish I could tell him what's going on, but I know he'll just see me as weak. No coach wants a quarterback who's got a weak-ass mind leading the team." With that, Marcus's thoughts all rushed together and a darkness fell like the ending of a broken day. The early morning sun snuck through the pulled curtains in Marcus's room. As the warm light gently opened his eyes, he was quickly met with a heavy weight of guilt. Pulling his body out of bed, it felt like he was going to be sick. His thoughts were merciless and unending. One after another they shot through his groggy mind, solidifying in him the painful feelings of disappointment. Stumbling into the kitchen, he grabbed a cup of coffee and laid on the couch. Looking around, he realized Colt's keys weren't hanging on the white hook next to the door. He must have gone out with the guys last night, Marcus thought. Marcus was happy to be alone. Even though Colt was his best friend and running back, he was one of the last people he wanted to talk to, especially since the most disheartening image that kept flashing through Marcus's mind was the quick-thinking shovel pass Brandon had made to Colt to score the winning touchdown. "That should have been me," he winced. There was little more he could do to quiet his mind, freeing himself from the never-ending torture he was putting himself through, and so he took out his phone and began to scroll. This eased his mind for the time being, until he landed on a video of Brandon being hugged on the sideline by Coach Anders after the game had ended. Fire leapt in Marcus's stomach and a tear fell into his dark coffee. "You're not feeling sorry for yourself," he demanded. "What would Dad say right now?" Well, such wonderings were short-lived, as the video quickly went black and his dad's name flashed on the screen. 5 rings came and went with the phone buzzing in Marcus's hand. He just stared at it. The name vanished and the screams from the video streamed through the speakers. Marcus kept scrolling until... Bzz, bzz. This time it was a text message. "Morning, Marcus. Give me a call when you get a chance." Marcus locked the phone and tossed it next to him on the blue couch. Bouncing once on the cushion, it fell to the floor. There it sat on the cold tile as he stood up, taking his coffee out onto the balcony. Their apartment was on the top floor of a complex just a few minutes from the stadium. Looking down, Marcus could see a few beer cans littered about the parking lot. One was sitting on top of a small green shrub that a dog was peeing on as a young woman spoke on the phone. Marcus just watched, trying to prolong the inevitable. He knew he needed to call his dad. He couldn't avoid him all week. But there was no denying the fact that he was terrified of what his dad would say. Marcus knew he would be disappointed, angry, and rather embarrassed at the poor level of play his son had shown over the past 3 weeks. Having a freshman take his spot and win the game, Marcus knew, would not sit well at all. "All right, let's get this over with," he huffed. Shutting the door behind him, Marcus picked up the phone and called his dad. "Hey, son." "Hey, Dad. How's it going?" "Oh, I'm all right. What I'm wondering is how are you?" "Look, Dad, I know you're disappointed and I'm sorry. I don't know what happened." "Marcus, I'm your father, and of course I want you to play up to the level you're capable of, but you know damn well the only way you can disappoint me is by not trying. Of course I'm trying. You know I didn't want to throw those interceptions, and it killed me to be taken out like that." "I know. But you need to be honest with me. What's going on? Is it a girl? Are you distracted with school?" "No, nothing like that." "Then what is it? I saw the game yesterday, and it looked like you were in another world. Your eyes were glazed over like your body was there, but your brain had traveled miles away." "That's about right. To be honest, I couldn't even tell you what happened for half the plays the past few weeks if it weren't for film. It's like I've been blacking out. Are you just not focusing on the game?" "I'm trying to be. It's just..." Marcus stopped himself. "It's just what, son?" "Nothing." "Now, Marcus, I'm not going to waste my time talking to you if you won't even tell me what's going on." "Fine, then," Marcus stated defensively. "I don't want to waste any more of your time, Dad. I'll talk to you later." "That's not what I meant. But do you want to keep playing like you did yesterday?" "Hell no. Right now I'll be lucky to even play again at all." "Don't start in with that crap. You've been the starter for 2.5 years. Anders has more than enough trust in you." "We'll see. You need to go talk to him about it. Right now, for all he knows, you just don't care anymore." "Of course I care. Then go talk to him." "I can't." "Why?" Because why, son?" "Because I can't tell him I've been dealing with anxiety and doubting myself. No coach wants a weak leader." Time stood still as the air around Marcus thickened. He waited in silence. His dad's breathing was all he could hear on the other end of the phone. The moments passed and Marcus couldn't take it any longer. "Hello?" he questioned. "I'm still here." "Did you hear what I said?" "I did." "I honestly don't know what to say." "You've got nervous before, haven't you?" "Yeah, but nothing like this." "And what do you have to doubt yourself for? You've always been the starter, and haven't we always told you how good you are?" "Yeah, you have." "Then where is this coming from?" "I don't know, Dad, that's the thing. If I knew where it was coming from, I'd fix it." "I think you need to talk to Anders." "I don't know. There's not much I can tell you, Marcus. What I do know is that there's absolutely no reason for you to doubt yourself. You are a great quarterback, and that's that. You need to get this figured out, or it'll be something you regret for the rest of your life." "I know." "So what are you going to do about it, then?" "I'm not sure." "Well, I can tell you one thing. It's time to stop feeling sorry for yourself. You need to get out there and show the coach what you're made of. A few bad games can't stop you, son. You're stronger than that." "I know. So I'll ask you again, what are you going to do?" "I guess I'm going to go talk to Coach on Monday, and just keep practicing hard this week and get ready for Thursday." "Oh yeah, that's right. You all have a quick turnaround this week." "Yeah, there should be a lot of people watching, too. That will be a huge embarrassment if I don't start." "Don't talk like that, Marcus. Just speak with Anders and focus on getting yourself back to normal before Thursday." "All right, I will. Thank you." "I love you, son, and I believe in you. Get some rest now." With that, the call was ended, but Marcus's worries were not. The only solution his dad had helped him find was to speak with Coach Anders, the actual last person he wanted to talk to right now. For one, he knew the tongue lashing that was awaiting him. Second, in Marcus's mind, telling the coach that he was doubting himself and feeling anxious was the quickest way to find a permanent spot on the bench. No, that could not be revealed. Instead, he focused on the second part of his dad's advice, practicing hard and getting ready for Thursday's game, acting as though nothing had happened. The next 2 days came and went with full determination. While the feelings of anxiety and self-doubt were still present, Marcus worked tirelessly to keep them hidden, especially from his coaches. However, the downside of this was that his energy and focus were quickly drained. Even though his determination was there, his accuracy was not. Taking reps with the first team, which strangely had him feeling even more pressure, he was off target and forgetting easy routes. "Damn it, Marcus, where's your head at?" Coach Anders yelled after a third missed throw in a row. He went home that night with what little motivation he'd begun the week with having completely vanished. Marcus was worn down, and the yelling he'd endured throughout practice did little to help his confidence. To make matters worse, Marcus was now beating himself up over having his feelings hurt by getting yelled at. "You're such a wimp," he chastised as he lay in bed. "It's not the first time you've been yelled at." It wasn't the first time at all, but it was the first time it felt like a personal attack. For his entire time at school, Marcus and Coach Anders had a strong relationship. Or so Marcus thought. Now it seemed like his coach had turned on him, looking down on him like a broken quarterback, a thing of the past. Marcus was convinced all his coach's confidence in him had disappeared, much like the confidence Marcus had in himself. A feeling that was truly solidified the next day at walkthroughs. It was Wednesday, which meant game day was tomorrow. Practices hadn't been too strenuous to begin with, as Coach Anders wanted to be sure his team was well rested given the short turnaround. Today's practice was even easier, simply walking through the plays. Yet, to Marcus, it was the most difficult one he'd ever been a part of. Coach Anders took Brandon aside. Everyone knew the routine, and so following stretches the first-team offense gathered together, ready to begin walkthroughs. Except, to Marcus's pain, he saw Brandon racing like an excited child to where they were all standing. "Marcus!" A voice stung in his ear. Jogging over, he stopped in front of his coach. Taking off his helmet, Marcus swallowed slowly, bracing for the news he was terrified to hear. "Marcus, you've led us well these past 2 years, and I want you to know you're still my starting quarterback. But I can tell you need a break. I don't know what's going on with you, but for the past few weeks, you haven't played like the quarterback I know. I'm going to sit you for tomorrow's game to give you some time to think about things and just watch for a change. Brandon will start, and I want you to be a good teammate for him. Can you do that?" No. He did not feel like he could do that at all. In fact, Marcus felt like choke-slamming his coach and driving away in a cloud of anger. But frustration was mixed with sadness as the harsh reality of an embarrassment that he was getting benched sunk in. "Yes, sir," he replied. His voice felt empty and distant. Practice progressed under a shadow of grief. Marcus did what he could to answer the young quarterback's questions, but he spoke through a tightened jaw, forcing himself to not show the anger and shame boiling within. It seemed Brandon had something to ask on every play. Marcus couldn't blame him. After all, that's how you learn. If it had happened any other way, say an injury had sidelined him, Marcus would have had no problem at all helping to guide the freshman along. But with the truth being that it was his own poor play that led to being benched, he was short with his answers. Though no matter how unfriendly he felt he was being, Brandon kept looking to him for guidance. Pushing through, it was time for practice to end. With a feeling of relief, Marcus got in his car and drove back to his apartment. Lying in bed that night, Marcus began to panic. Fear set in as the reality of his shame was about to unfold. Many would see him sidelined, and he knew what they would think of him. Having his identity consumed with being the starting quarterback left him feeling hollow. Now serving as the backup, not even good enough to start over a freshman, Marcus's identity had been stripped. He slept little throughout the night and awoke with a heavy feeling of dread. "Let's get this over with," he grumbled. To Marcus, the game was a blur. It came and went with a flash as the defense led an unrelenting attack on the opposing offense. Brandon threw one touchdown, but it was the 2 pick sixes that helped solidify the 24-7 victory. Marcus surprised himself with how well he'd acted on the sideline, seeking to show no sign of disappointment and cheering his team on through a forced smile. But inside, Marcus could feel the pressure of many eyes as they looked on at the shadow of what he used to be. The game was over now, and it was time to move on. As he changed in the locker room, Marcus hoped that at any moment Coach Anders would pull him aside, thanking him for being a good teammate and welcome him back once more as a starting quarterback. That never came. He left the field that night convinced, with the back-to-back wins, his spot was now solidified as a backup. They were given the weekend off. Marcus needed to rest his mind more than his body. However, he knew the only way to truly settle his growing feeling of doubt was to speak with Coach Anders. It needed to be done, and he was guilty not to have listened to his father's advice up to that point. Today was Saturday, and the previous day another long conversation had taken place between Marcus and his father. When asked the question, he came up with a crooked lie that he had spoken with the coach, and all was in order for him to regain the starting role the following week. Why had he done so? Marcus couldn't even say. Now he was steeped even deeper in anxiety, knowing the lie he told his father would likely be realized at their next game. As much as it pained him, there was only one option left, other than to walk away from the game he loved. Marcus needed to go talk to Coach Anders. Every Saturday morning, Coach Anders lifted in the weight room at school. Their training center was large, with a full indoor turf field for practicing when it rained or in the colder months. Attached to the field was a large weight room. Many squat racks lined the walls, but only one was occupied. Normally, it was a way for him to calm his restless nerves before a game, but today it was simply relaxing. No one was there, as all the players were resting soundly, either sleeping off pains from the recent game or a pounding headache from too much celebrating. The air in the weight room was cold and felt thin to Marcus as he opened the door. No music was playing, and he heard the clanging of the bar as it was dropped. Coach Anders was doing deadlifts at a rack on the far end. "Marcus," he called out, looking up as sweat dripped onto the light-colored wooden platform. "What are you doing here this morning?" His stomach swarmed with nerves and his throat tightened as he forced out a reply. "I was hoping to talk to you." "Just give me a second. I've got one more set, and then I'll meet you in my office." Marcus left the weight room, turning to the left and walking down the hallway lined with photos. He stopped in front of one and stared. It was from his freshman year. The picture was of him diving into the end zone. Looking through the face mask, it appeared that a slight smile was on his face. It seemed to him at that moment that the man in the photo was gone. He continued down the hallway until he came to the coach's office. The door was open, and he went in, taking a seat on the dark brown leather couch across from the desk. "So what's up, Marcus?" Coach Anders asked, as he sat in a chair across from the couch. He wiped his face free of sweat with a white towel, waiting for what he already knew was wanting to be said. "It's about the games recently," Marcus began. He'd gotten himself to the point of courage where he could speak with his coach, but he hadn't quite organized his thoughts about what to say. So he simply started with an apology. "I want to say I'm sorry for how badly I've been playing. That's not me at all. I know it's not you, Marcus, and like I said at practice the other day, I think some rest is what you need. Coach, I understand that, but you don't know how hard it is to sit on the sideline and watch. Now, you always need to be careful when you say someone doesn't know how hard something is. I spent my fair share of time watching as the game went on without me. You can't let getting benched wear down your confidence. You've got to be tougher than that, Marcus. But the one thing I do know about you is that you're tough, which is why I've been trying to wrap my head around what the hell's going on. Look, I did what I thought was best for you and the team. I couldn't keep having you throwing interceptions as watching as your confidence plummeted. But it took a lot of courage to come talk to me, and once again, you've shown why I have so much respect for you. Now, it's just you and me here. I want you to be honest. What's really going on?" Marcus took a deep breath. "It happened all of a sudden about 4 weeks ago. Out of nowhere, I got these incredible feelings of anxiety and began doubting myself. I know that makes me weak, and I'm sorry, but that's the truth, Coach. I don't know what to do or how to stop them, but when I'm playing, it's like I'm blacking out." Coach Anders gave a comforting smile and a slight laugh. Why would that make you weak? Because I can't handle the pressure or whatever it is that's causing this. It doesn't mean you're weak, Marcus. It means you're human. A mixed look of relief and confusion fell over Marcus's face. He had been terrified of what his coach's response would be, and here he was, seemingly understanding him. But how could it not mean he's weak? I don't understand. I thought anxiety and all that crap made me weak, like it was something to avoid. I hate to hear that's how you've been feeling. I wish you had come talk to me earlier. No, dealing with anxiety is natural. It doesn't mean you're weak. What's weak is hiding your anxiety and allowing it to gnaw at you from the inside. Strength is facing challenges head on and asking yourself, okay, now what? You've shown strength by coming to me today and opening up about the true reasons you've been struggling, the type of strength a leader shows, he said with a reassuring smile. Thanks, Coach. You don't know how great it is to hear you say that, but what can I do? Knowing it's not something to fear makes it a little better, but the doubts are still there. I'm just afraid the next time I'm on the field, all those anxious thoughts are just going to come flooding back in. All right, I'll tell you what. Coach Anders turned around, grabbing a yellow notepad and a pen from his desk. Here, he said, handing them to Marcus. We're going to do a little exercise. And you think this will help? Marcus, I know I look like I only know football, but I've studied other things throughout the years to make myself a good coach. This is an exercise I picked up from a friend of mine who works with professional athletes. Trust me and give it a try. I'm not saying it's magic, but sometimes it works like it is. All right, anything to get me back on the field. He adjusted the notepad, resting it on his lap, and held the pen tightly in his hand. What I want you to do is first list out everything that you're afraid of. Marcus's eyes drifted up to the ceiling, staring at the blue paint as he thought. Okay, he said, and began listing them out. What did you put? I'm a little embarrassed to say. More embarrassed than you'll feel sitting the bench for the rest of the season? Marcus gave an uncomfortable laugh. No, I guess not. Okay, here's what I have. I'm afraid of my anxiety going into the game. I'm afraid of playing badly and letting everyone down. I'm afraid of having everyone see me sitting the bench while a freshman starts over me. I'm afraid of not becoming the player I know I can be. Okay, very good. Now look at those statements and tell me where your thinking is in each of them. What do you mean? Are you thinking about the past, present, or future? Marcus thought for a moment, looking back over the list. The future, I guess. Exactly. The first key to keep in mind is that whenever you're feeling anxious, your thoughts are traveling into the future. Now, the next part of the exercise involves answering a few questions. Are you ready? Yeah. All right, question number 1. Are any of these worries helpful? An odd look of confusion fell over Marcus's face. It was as though the answer that sprang into his mind was too simple to be correct. No, of course not, he stated. Okay, question number 2. What will happen if you don't let go of these fears and stop focusing on your anxiety? He sat there thinking, and then a sudden feeling of disappointment shot throughout his body. I'd regret it for the rest of my life, Marcus shuddered. All right then, Marcus, what you need to do is whenever you begin feeling anxious, in your case, anxious about being anxious, ask yourself these 2 questions. This will help remind you how unhelpful the thoughts are and create a strong need to let them go, since the alternative is dealing with intense regret. Now on to the last step. Flip to another page and make a list of all the positive aspects of your game. In other words, what are your strengths and what are some great successes you've had in the past? This Marcus did easily. He knew well what his strengths were, even if they'd felt distant as of late. Done. Here's what I came up with. My arm strength, my accuracy on deep balls, my footwork and speed avoiding the rush, my vision, last year's playoff game when I threw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns, first game of the season this year when I rushed for 3 touchdowns, my first game as a starter. There are a ton more I can think of, but I think those are good. Those are great, Marcus, and I agree with everything you wrote. To finish off this exercise, your responsibility now is to read over those statements each day. You are doubting yourself because you're focusing on what could go wrong, right? Yeah. Instead, what you need to do is keep reminding yourself of all the reasons you have to be confident. Rip out both pages of notes and take them with you. Each day, read over your fears and ask yourself the 2 questions I asked you. Then, read over the list of reasons you have to be confident. Sound good? Yes, sir. That sounds great. Thank you, Coach. I feel much better. Marcus took the 2 pieces of paper he'd ripped out of the notebook, folded them, and put them in his pocket. I'm glad to hear that, Marcus. Now go enjoy your time off. Coach Anders remained seated as Marcus stood up to walk out the door. Oh, and Marcus? Yeah, Coach? Be ready for next Saturday. Marcus smiled. Yes, sir. I hope you enjoyed that story about Marcus, and the struggles he was having with getting benched. This is something that I see in a lot of the athletes I work with, where when you get benched, it's easy to, number one, feel like you've lost your identity, right? Feel shame, feel embarrassment. But I think there are a couple of key lessons from the story. One is that if you're benched for any reason, because your performance has dropped due to anxiety or fear or self-doubt, it is important that you open up to somebody about that, whether it is a parent, a coach, or somebody like myself as a mental performance coach. And then you get to work on managing your anxiety, where you work on learning how to take your attention off of those future worries and start to be more present. And also, you begin focusing on, kind of more of the positives of your performance, right? And the reasons you have to be successful and to be confident in yourself, just like Marcus did. And then if you are benched, it's so easy to have that hurt your identity, hurt your confidence, cause feelings of doubt, feelings of shame. But I really just encourage you to focus on what you can do each day to not only support your team, but to do what you can to build your confidence, calm your nerves, and help yourself get back out there and play the way you know how to play. So again, I hope you